Codependency is a relatively modern concept, with the word coming into being as recently as 1979. According to the dictionary, it means a psychological condition or relationship in which a person manifesting low self-esteem and a strong desire for approval has an unhealthy attachment to another, often controlling or manipulative person, such as a person with an addiction to alcohol or drugs. It is often used to describe the relationship where an addict has a dependency on a non-addict, usually within an intimate relationship. Codependency can be damaging for both parties, psychologically, emotionally, and sometimes physically. But sometimes the conniving and nasty control freak bastards that exist in this world will actually actively promote and cultivate codependency so they can have almost complete control over another person. Michael Slager was such a vile individual, and what he ended up doing to his partner was beyond comprehension. As a result, there will be images in this video that may be hard to see. But such is the abhorrent behavior that needs to be brought into the light. This is Murder of Crows. Judy Malinovski was born on August 26, 1983. She adored her siblings and seemed to have a picture-perfect childhood in suburban Ohio, even being named as the homecoming queen. She was a bright and beautiful young woman, but then her life went off track. While the destination on this new track may be depressingly familiar, her route to getting there was both unusual and heart-wrenching. In early adulthood, Judy was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, which she received treatment for, and thankfully the cancer went into remission. But in 2006, doctors informed her that it had returned, and she faced another fight in her short life. She didn't know at that time that her most important and most difficult health battle lay years into the future. After having two daughters, Kaylin and Madison, doctors told Malinovski that her best chance of tackling the cancer for good was to have a full hysterectomy. Now, this was still at a time when this was a very invasive surgery that took considerable time to recover from. It was during this recovery that her medical insurance ran out. But at the same time, She had become dependent on the opiate painkillers she had been given to aid her recovery. So with no money to access the legal opiates that she had been using, she turned to the cheaper, dirtier street version, which was of course heroin. But as during her upbringing, her mother, Bonnie Bowes, was a tower of strength. She took in and cared for Judy's two daughters, as Judy fought to beat the opiate issues she was facing. And soon she was in recovery from her addiction. It was during this recovery, at around the age of 30, that a new problem entered her life. Not that she knew it would be a problem at the time. Michael Slager sparked up a friendship with Judy over social media, as you do, and pretty soon they were inseparable. A situation that Slager, knowing what we know now, would have actively cultivated, as he would have wanted her all to himself. You know, a situation we see with many perpetrators of domestic abuse. As Judy was an addict in recovery, Slager knew that he had an easy route to get control over the vulnerable mother of two. He needed to restart the addiction. Slager, unknown to Judy's family, had a long list of previous offences, with more red flags than a Chinese army parade. Child endangerment, theft, stalking, and domestic violence. If you were playing fantasy psychopath bingo, Slager would have been your star player. Also unknown to Judy's family, he actively got her hooked on heroin again. And through his control of the couple's finances, she depended on him to buy the drugs that he had made her need again. His need for control was absolute, and he unquestionably had control over Judy Malinovski. Or so he thought. He underestimated the level of fight that Judy had beneath her addiction issues. A fight that was constantly pushing her to get off the drugs and be a good mother for her daughters. As a result, the couple would fight often, and of course this would set Slager off, and he would use aggression and violence to reassert his control. As with many abusers, Slager had a very short fuse, because he knew that losing his temper would end up, in his experience, getting him control back. Now, Judy Malinovski was planning to go back into rehab so she could once again get clean and focus on her family. Although never documented, I would have to assume that Slager wouldn't have been keen on the idea, as it would reduce his control. But at the same time, he had to be seen to be supporting the idea, as he always wanted to be seen as, somewhere in his warped hall of mirrors self-image, the good guy. But he would undoubtedly have been simmering with anger and frustration, as his control was going to be, if not lost, certainly reduced by the period in and after rehab. So it was while they were en route to the rehab on the 2nd of August 2015 that the couple were at a gas station and they had one of their many fights, with Judy throwing a drink at Slager. So how did this well-balanced and decent man react? Did he laugh it off? Did he roll his eyes and call Judy a silly bugger or some equivalent Americanism? Did he stamp his feet and have a tantrum? Nope, he did what abusers do and jumped right off the deep end, going from 0 to apoplectic rage in 0.1 seconds. He went to his truck, got one of his gas cans from the back and started dousing his partner in petrol. At this point, with things having escalated very, very quickly and being used to Slager's outbursts, Judy tried to appease the bully by asking him to stop and saying she would go with him and everything would be fine. But it wouldn't. Slager again headed back towards his truck, not to retreat, but to recover his cigarette lighter. He then calmly set her alight and watched dispassionately as her body was engulfed in flames. The remainder of this story is down to the strength and fortitude of Judy Malinovski. I will show pictures of what happened to Judy, and they are not for the faint-hearted. In the immediate aftermath of the appalling incident, a frantic passerby called 911.
Hey, I need you to stop screaming because I can't understand what you're saying.
Somebody just set a woman on fire, but she just ignited immediately.
Okay, she's still on fire, sir?
He just grabbed the fire extinguisher from inside Speedway. She's on the ground. I mean, it was bad.
And Slager was trying to say that what happened was an unfortunate accident, because of course he did. But fortunately, ATM CCTV footage had captured the entire incident on camera. So Slager's own account of what had happened was in tatters. Judy was rushed to the hospital, where she was not expected to survive. She had suffered 3rd and 4th degree burns to over 90% of her body, and she was in a coma for several months as her body clung to the faint tendrils of survival. Slager was, legally speaking, fucked. The entire heinous incident was caught on camera and he had very little wiggle room. As Judy Malinovski continued to fight an increasingly bleak battle to survive, the Assistant District Prosecutor Warren Edwards was candid in his description of the legal position in the case against Slager. As he said, "For the first several months of this case, we were playing the delay game. It sounds terrible, but we were basically waiting for Judy to die so that we could charge Slager with the homicide. And we got a call one day that she was awake, which is a call I never expected to get." The prosecutor says, "It was the first homicide case I've handled where I got to meet the victim." While lead detective Chad Cohagen said he had never seen a trauma like that to a human body that wasn't deceased. But indeed, the phone call was true. Judy Malinovski had come out of her coma, but her prognosis was still bleak. She had lost her ears completely. and over the next few months she had to undergo more than 50 surgeries. She crashed 8 times and had to be revived, and she underwent numerous excruciating skin grafts, many of which failed. But her will was strong. I'm going to show an image of how Judy looked after she came around. If this isn't for you, feel free to skip ahead about a minute, but I feel it's vital to understanding the impact that Slager's momentary anger caused for this beautiful lady, and by extension the entire family, who were constantly at the bedside of a woman in constant pain, and with, even by this time, only a minimal chance of survival. But she was pushed on by her desire to ensure that Slager was punished for his actions. With Judy clinging to life, the most Slager could be charged with was aggravated arson and felonious assault. He pleaded no contest when he knew that if Judy testified by video link, that any jury would hate him. Quite rightly, in my opinion. Now, unfortunately, Ohio state law at this time only permitted a maximum sentence of 11 years for these offences, which is what the judge imposed. And she said to Slager, "You really do seem like one of those people that have no soul, and you need to be incarcerated. That's all I have to say to you." The judge was upset that she could not jail Slager for longer, and she was not alone in this. The authorities, the media, and Judy Malinovski's family were incensed by the relatively short sentence for such an abhorrent and evil action. By this time, Judy had survived for almost 18 months against all odds, but her fragile health was beginning to fail again. But she was still fighting, as she was campaigning for a change in the law to allow increased sentences for crimes that leave the victim disfigured. Her sister Danielle Gorman said, "There was this part of her that wanted to make it and to live to fight for every other woman that had been through something like that. She definitely wanted the law to change, and she was willing to do whatever she needed to do to help change the law." Now, with her health continuing to decline, state prosecutors, still seething at the short sentence Slager received, approached Judy with a sensitive but proactive suggestion. They proposed that Judy actually record a deposition that could be included in her own murder trial. It was a remarkable and unprecedented proposition, but it would only happen if Judy Malinovski agreed. She absolutely did. But in order to prove that she was of a sound mind for the deposition to be admissible in court, she would actually need to reduce the level of pain medication she was receiving. Can you imagine having to decide to be in even more pain when the pain you can still feel, even with medication, is crippling and excruciating. But this remarkable lady had no hesitation in agreeing to ensure that as and when she did succumb to her injuries, her words would posthumously hammer Slager's balls to the wall. Having reduced her medication sufficiently, Judy Malinovski, her face etched with the strain and the pain she was suffering, made a legally admissible statement of what was done to her. She held her own under necessary cross-examination. She would be a compelling witness in her own murder trial as and when it came to pass. I have no words big enough, strong enough, or downright incredible enough to express my pride, my admiration, and my respect for what this woman did and what she put herself through in order to achieve it. Franklin County District Attorney Ron O'Brien said he considered it a stroke of genius to come up with the idea of taking a deposition where she could testify from the grave at a subsequent homicide trial. Just 5 months after giving her deposition, Judy Malinovski finally lost her fight for survival on June the 27th, 2017. From having no chance of survival, this brave and strong-willed woman held on for nearly 2 years, and during that time campaigned to change the law. Judy's law was passed in September of 2017 by Ohio State Governor John Kasich, with Judy's daughters Katie Lynn and Madison in attendance. This law requires that an additional 6 years be added to any sentence where the crime led to a victim being disfigured. Now, 42-year-old Michael Slager managed to avoid a possible death penalty that was being appealed for him in court. He pleaded guilty on July the 5th for the death of 33-year-old Judy Malinovski after coming to an agreement on a deal with prosecutors. If convicted, Slager could have been given the death penalty at trial. The presiding judge at the Franklin County Common Pleas Court sentenced the man to life behind bars without the possibility of parole. But anyone enraged by Slager escaping the death penalty needs to understand that Malinovski herself wanted Slager not to suffer the death penalty, as during her deposition she asked the judge that she would want life in prison and not execution for Slager. Judy's deposition was shown as part of Slager's sentencing hearing, and it was as impactful as it was intended. Before I move on to end this story, I want to quote some of Judy's most harrowing and damning testimony to serve as a tribute to what she went through to make these words legally admissible. She recounts how Slager got her rehooked on heroin, bought her the drugs, and had previously threatened her life. She said, "I called the police and told them Michael was going to kill me and I needed help. But the detective did nothing about it. So here I am. She added, "You have to understand, on August the 2nd, I was set on fire, thrown on the ground and burnt 95% of my body. It's really hard for me to try and keep track of everything that happened in this horrible relationship." After she threw a drink at him during a fight, she says that Slager ran around to the other side of his truck and he got these cans of gasoline that he kept in the back of his truck. He ran around me and started pouring gasoline, started at my head and worked his way down. Some got in my throat as he did that. That burnt really bad. Calling him evil, she explains how Slager backed away from me for about 30 seconds. I kept telling him to please help me and stop, and I'll get in the truck, I'll go with you. And he pulled a lighter out of his pocket and he started walking towards me. I just remember crying and begging for help, and he lit me on fire. And the look in his eyes went black, literally. After I was set on fire and he backed away, his eyes just turned black as I screamed for his help, and he did nothing. I don't think words can describe what it feels like to have your whole body set on fire. I can remember fire on my face and eyes. I can remember screaming for help. I never knew that a human being could be so evil. He just stood there and did nothing. God, please, please help me. It stung. It was like 1,000 needles going in. 1,000 hot needles penetrating my body. And then it got to the point that I couldn't see anything. And everyone's voices were sounding far away. I thought for sure I was dying. I just prayed to Jesus to please forgive me for my sins and to take care of my children. That was when I blacked out, and I don't remember anything until I woke up in the hospital. Now I'm going to play some actual clips from the deposition, but if you feel it would be too hard to watch or it's something you don't want to look at, then feel free to skip forward about 5 minutes.
Thank you. Judy, let's talk about the moment that you were set on fire. Did you have a cigarette?
No.
Did you ask for a light?
No.
Did you make up with Michael in any way?
No.
And when he approached you with the lighter, what did he look like?
Like Satan's child.
Did he appear to be angry or like he compassionate, like he was making up with you?
He was here to be full of rage and yet calm at the same time.
Was his approaching you with that lighter accidental? Did he trip or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
No.
Judy, tell me how that moment felt when you were ignited.
It felt horrible. I don't think words can describe what it feels like to have your whole body's on fire. I can remember fire out of my face and eyes. I can remember screaming for help. I can remember looking over and seeing him just standing there staring at me with the look in his face that was just like I keep saying over and over again, pure evil. Like there's no other words to describe it. My whole body felt like the worst burn you could ever feel in your life.
Okay.
And it stung, and it was like 1,000 needles going in, 1,000 hot needles penetrating my body. I guess that's the best way I can explain it. And I just remember, like I said, begging him to help, pleading for any help, trying to get the fire off of my face, eventually burying my face in the grass and rolling around. And then I got to the point where I couldn't see anything and everybody's voices were sounding far away. I could tell there was definitely somebody around, but I couldn't hear him or make it out. I thought for sure I was dying. I just prayed to Jesus to please forgive me for my sins and to take care of my children. And that was it. I blacked out and I don't remember anything until I woke up in the hospital.
And so,
Can I just make sure if there's something else Mr. Craypants wanted to say with regard to your objection? Anything? Okay. That's fine.
Judy, so just to be clear, you don't remember who came to your aid?
No.
You don't remember who extinguished you?
No.
You don't remember paramedics or firemen arriving or police officers?
No, unfortunately, I don't.
Okay. The next thing you remember is waking up in the hospital. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Let's talk about your hospital experience. You've been hospitalized ever since this incident in various hospitals around Columbus, correct?
That's correct.
Do you know how many surgeries you've had?
Over 50.
And you're aware that you have coded 7 times, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell me about the pain that you live with?
Objection. I live with pain every day. I can't tell you or describe how it feels. It's just waking up is a horrible thing. Because you wake up feeling the same way every day. They say it gets a little better as time goes by, but it's one thing heals, another thing hurts. So I had to push myself to make it through every day. I have to really tell myself why I'm doing this, and I have to just breathe through it, and that's all I can do. It's nothing I would ever wish upon anybody, and it's terrifying to feel this way, and it's terrifying also to be disformed in certain ways. My whole body hurts, my muscles hurt from stretching, my open wounds hurt and sting and burn when they put the dressings on and try to clean out. It's the worst thing ever. Even water hurts. So there's nothing that's okay about this.
For the first time in history, a dead woman's voice was legally heard during her own homicide trial. The unbelievable strength and determination is a testament to Judy Malinovski, and it continues to inspire her family and her children. What Slager did to her was beyond cruel, by any measure of the word. He deserves to suffer, and Malinovski herself wanted him to have the long-term suffering that a sentence of life imprisonment brings with it. This video is, of course, dedicated to the absolute courage and will of Judy Malinovski. Her legacy lives on through her children and also through Judy's law. I hope Slager suffers in prison and that he gets some rare disease that makes his willy fall off. For anyone wanting to know more about Judy's ordeal, a film called The Fire That Took Her, documenting the entire harrowing ordeal, became available to stream on Paramount Plus as of May 2023, I believe. Thank you for watching another episode of Murder of Crows, and this was a very, very harrowing one. I'm Steve. This here is Samson, keeping an eye on the traffic going past outside, and we'll see you when we see you.
Say that you're ready, but you won't like it. You say that